Hello, dear friends. Before we begin, if you find this story worthwhile, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss similar stories. As you listen, if any part of this touches your heart, please leave a comment to share your thoughts with everyone. I love knowing that my stories are reaching people from all corners of the country. You believe in the life you've built. It's a belief as solid as the foundation of your home. In Springfield, the one you and Robert have nurtured for 15 years. You look around the living room on Christmas Eve, and your heart swells with a warm pride. The golden lights from the tree twinkle on the silver ornaments you so carefully polished. The air is rich with the scent of roast turkey gingerbread and cinnamon, a symphony of holiday aromas. Family laughter fills the space, punctuated by the clinking of glasses and the soft melody of Christmas carols drifting from the record player in the corner. Everything is perfect. Everything is in its place. And at the center of it all is Robert, your husband. You watch him standing by the fireplace, a drink in one hand, the other resting on your cousin's shoulder, telling a joke that makes the whole room laugh. He looks so handsome in his perfectly tailored suit, his hair impeccably combed, his smile so radiant it could light up the room. When he walks into a space, people notice. And when he turns to smile at you from across the room, a smile reserved just for you, the rest of the world seems to melt away. You are Mrs. Robert Miller, wife of a successful, respected man, a hard-working sales representative who has given you a life of comfort and ease. You are immensely proud of him. That pride is a core part of who you are. Your life is a perfect picture, a model admired by neighbors and friends. There is only one missing brushstroke, one quiet ache in your heart, the laughter of a child. But you've learned to live with that sadness, filling the void by caring for Robert for your home and by hosting perfect parties like this one. You tell yourself it is enough. But then, on Christmas Eve of 1966, the first tiny crack appears in that perfect picture. Dinner is over, and everyone is mingling happily. But you notice a shift in Robert. He's no longer fully present. His eyes keep darting to his wristwatch. Once, twice, then a third time. At first, you feel a flicker of annoyance. Why is he so impatient? But the annoyance soon melts into a vague unease. Around 10 p.m., he pulls you into the hallway where the blinking Christmas lights cast dancing shadows on the walls. "I have to step out for a bit, my love," he says, his voice a rushed whisper. "Go where?" You ask, still holding your linen napkin. "An important client. He's a busy man, could only meet tonight. It's a big deal." A client on Christmas Eve. The question hangs in the air between you, sharp and cold. It's ludicrous. But you look at Robert's serious face, the purposeful way he adjusts his tie, and you swallow the question. You are a supportive wife. That is your role. You force a smile, perhaps a little too tight, and say, "Of course, dear. Don't be too long." He pecks you on the cheek, a hurried kiss, and then he's out the door, leaving you with the silence and the faint scent of pine. 3 hours pass in both a blink and an eternity. When he returns, a triumphant smile is back on his face. But there's something else, a strange scent. It isn't his usual cologne, but something sweeter, more floral. When you ask, he casually explains it's the client's wife's perfume from a celebratory toast. You choose to believe him. More accurately, you force yourself to believe him because the alternative is too terrifying to consider. You tell yourself you're being foolishly jealous, ruining a perfect holiday with silly fantasies. The next morning, while cleaning up and organizing the gifts, you realize the blue silk scarf you had carefully chosen for your sister Cecilia is gone. You search everywhere in the closet, under the sofa, in the storage room. It has vanished. When you mention it to Robert, he just shrugs. You must have forgotten to buy it or misplaced it. His tone is so dismissive, it makes you question your own memory. Maybe he's right. Maybe you were just tired. The crack, though small, remains. A year later, Christmas 1967, the crack widens. The scene repeats itself like a well-rehearsed play. The wonderful dinner, the laughter, and then Robert's eyes glued to his watch. The same excuse about an important client is offered. This time, there's a slight edge to your voice when you question him, but he soothes you with a kiss and a promise to be back soon. When he returns 3 hours later, the scent of women's perfume lingers around him again. And this time, there is undeniable proof, a small, faint, but distinct smudge of lipstick on the collar of the crisp white shirt you had ironed for him that morning. Your heart stops for a second. He tries to hide it by turning up his collar, but you saw it. That night, you lie awake in bed, staring into the darkness, your mind racing with painful scenarios. Beside you, Robert breathes evenly in his sleep, as peaceful as if nothing had happened. The next morning, the silver pocket watch you bought for your father is missing. You are certain you left it in the drawer with the other gifts. Its disappearance, combined with the image of the lipstick stain, creates a whirlwind in your soul. You go to the jeweler, who confirms that you did in fact purchase and take the watch home. You aren't going crazy. Your memory isn't failing you. Suspicion is no longer a seed. It has taken root, sending cold tendrils deep into your heart. You start paying closer attention. The whispers of neighbors, the casual questions from friends. I saw Robert having lunch with a beautiful young woman last week. Your best friend Laura mentions, when you confront him, Robert always has a plausible explanation. A client's daughter, a new business associate. Every explanation is smooth, seamless, and you, lacking concrete proof, choose silence once more. But your trust is eroding daily, like a cliff beaten by relentless waves. Christmas of 1968 comes and goes following the same script: Robert's restlessness, the 3-hour mysterious trip, and the disappearance of another gift, the expensive cashmere shawl for your mother. By now, it's no longer a coincidence. It's a cruel pattern. Your faith in Robert, once the bedrock of your life, is now as fragile as a pane of glass about to shatter. The following months are a living hell of doubt. You become someone you don't recognize. You secretly check his coat pockets, smell his shirts when he comes home, call his office to verify his stories. Each act fills you with guilt and shame, but you can't stop. Robert seems to notice your change and becomes more cautious. There are no more careless lipstick stains. Everything is perfectly concealed. And then, a few weeks before the fateful Christmas of 1969, you find a glimmer of hope. In his overcoat pocket, you discover a small velvet box. Your heart pounding, you tremble as you open it. Inside is a beautiful pearl necklace. A wave of relief and guilt washes over you. Could it be? Could you have been wrong all along? Perhaps it was all just paranoid jealousy, and this was his Christmas gift for you. When you ask him about it, he feigns surprise and then smiles, saying you've ruined the surprise. You feel awful, consumed with guilt, forever doubting your husband. That glimmer of hope re-illuminates your world, chasing away 3 years of darkness. You cling to that hope. You pour all your energy into preparing the most perfect Christmas ever, as a way to atone for your suspicions. But as the clock on the wall strikes 10 p.m., you see Robert start looking at his watch, and that fragile hope shatters into a million pieces. The familiar excuse leaves his lips. In that instant, you know you can no longer lie to yourself. The perfect facade has cracked completely, and you know that no matter how painful the truth is, you have to face it. The smile you give Robert as he leaves remains frozen on your face long after the door closes. It feels like a mask, and the moment his car is out of earshot, it shatters. The room so full of warmth and laughter just moments before now feels suffocatingly silent. Every doubt, every fear you had suppressed for 3 long years now floods in, not like a gentle stream, but like a dam bursting wide open. You can't deceive yourself anymore. The important client doesn't exist. The pearl necklace wasn't a guarantee of his faithfulness. It was just another, more sophisticated lie. A cold resolve rises within you, extinguishing the pain that threatens to consume you. You can't just sit here and wait. You have to know the truth. You find your younger brother James getting ready to leave. You pull him into the kitchen where the warm light illuminates the half-eaten plates. Your voice is a trembling whisper you barely recognize. James, follow him. Please, you have to help me. You spill everything in a rush, the disappearances on Christmas Eve, the strange perfume, the missing gifts, the repeated lies. James sees the desperation in your eyes, a desperation hidden for too long. He doesn't ask another question. Let's go, he says, and those 2 words are your lifeline. Sitting in James's car, you feel like a stranger in your own skin. The woman who was the hostess of a perfect party is now a reluctant detective tailing her own husband through the night. The familiar streets of Springfield glide by the festively decorated houses, blinking like silent mockeries. You watch Robert's car ahead, moving with a confident, decisive purpose. He doesn't hesitate at a single turn. He knows exactly where he's going. The familiarity of his route is another knife to the heart. This isn't a spontaneous trip. This is a ritual. His car leads you to a neighborhood you rarely visit, an affluent area with large homes set back behind manicured gardens. The wealth here is different, quiet, and established. And then Robert's car stops. It pulls up in front of a beautiful, elegant, two-story house, warm light spilling from its windows. A large, glittering Christmas tree stands proudly in the living room. It looks like a perfect Christmas card. A Christmas card you don't belong in. James kills the headlights and parks behind a large tree, giving you a clear, hidden view. Your heart hammers against your ribs so loudly you fear Robert might hear it from across the street. You hold your breath, waiting. He gets out of the car. He straightens his suit, looks around once. Then he walks to the back of the car and opens the trunk. Your world stops turning. From your vantage point, you can see everything with painful clarity. First come the brightly wrapped gift bags you've never seen before. Then a box of wine. But then your hand flies to your mouth as he pulls out 3 packages you recognize instantly. You don't recognize them with your mind, but with a punch to the gut. There is the floral wrapping paper you used for Cecilia's silk scarf 3 years ago. There is the small square box with the gold ribbon identical to the one that held your father's pocket watch 2 years ago. And there, wrapped in soft blue paper, your mother's cashmere shawl from last Christmas. There they are, irrefutable proof of his lies, of all the times you questioned your own sanity. He stole them. Your husband stole the gifts you bought with love for your family. But the nightmare isn't over. After taking out the stolen presents, he reaches back into the trunk one last time. And this time, he pulls out something that sucks the air from your lungs. The small blue velvet box, the box that held your fragile hope. The box with the pearl necklace you thought was meant for you. You feel nothing now. The pain has passed its threshold and turned into a cold, hollow emptiness. You hear James mutter a curse under his breath, but the sound seems to come from another world. You can only stare at the man, his arms full of lies, as he walks toward the door of that strange house. The door swings open, and a warm, golden light spills out. A woman appears. Robert smiles that brilliant smile you once thought was only for you and steps inside. The door closes, cutting off the scene, but the image is seared into your mind. "We've seen enough," James says, his voice thick with concern. "No," you reply, your voice as sharp as broken glass. You're surprised by your own calmness. "I need to see. I need to know everything." You and James get out of the car and walk cautiously toward the house. You don't feel the December cold anymore. There is only a fire burning inside you. You find a large side window where the curtains aren't fully drawn, creating a small gap. You look inside, and that's when your heart, which you thought was already broken, shatters into even smaller pieces. In the beautifully decorated living room, the young, lovely woman is sitting on the sofa. She is younger than you by at least a decade. But what makes you freeze is the little girl sitting on the rug beside her, a girl of about 7 with dark hair and big round eyes. Robert's eyes. You watch your husband, the man you shared half your life with, kneel and hand out the gifts. You watch the little girl squeal with delight as she opens the presents that should have belonged to your family. You watch the other woman lovingly drape Cecilia's silk scarf around her neck. And then, the final image, the one that kills the woman you used to be, Robert, takes out the blue velvet box, opens it, and fastens the pearl necklace around the woman's neck. Then they kiss, a long, passionate kiss to the sound of their daughter's happy applause. Their daughter. The words echo in your head. Robert wasn't just having an affair. He had another family, another life, a child. All those years you mourned your inability to have children, he already had one. In that moment, something inside you shifts. The overwhelming pain gives way to a cold, crystalline rage, a terrifying clarity. You are no longer the betrayed wife, weeping in the shadows. You straighten up, wiping away the single tear that managed to escape. You say nothing to James. You simply turn and walk with grim purpose toward the front door. James tries to stop you, but nothing can hold you back now. You press the doorbell. The chime rings out in the silent night, a harbinger of the end. Seconds later, the door opens. Robert stands there. When he sees you, his face contorts. The color drains from his cheeks. His eyes widen in pure terror, and his mouth opens and closes, unable to form a sound. "Mary," he finally manages to choke out. "I came to meet your other family, Robert." You say, your voice chillingly calm. "I came to see where the gifts that disappear from our house every Christmas end up." The other woman appears behind him, her face a mask of confusion. "Robert, who is this?" she asks, her voice soft. Before Robert can invent another lie, you look her straight in the eye and deliver the truth like a death sentence. "I'm Mary, Robert's wife." You see the understanding then, the horror dawn on her beautiful face. You watch as she unconsciously touches the pearl necklace. A gift built on your pain and deceit. You hear her whisper, "He told me he was a widower." And as the door slams shut in Robert's face, leaving him alone between his two shattered worlds, you know that your old life is truly over. But a new one, a life on your own terms, has just begun. Your world didn't end with a loud explosion, but with a silent kiss seen through a window. Under the warm, golden light of a stranger's home, you watched the man you'd spent 15 years with get down on one knee. You saw him open the small, blue velvet box you had naively believed was your destiny. And then you saw the string of pearls sparkle on another woman's neck. Their kiss was long and passionate, a cruel confirmation of everything you had tried to deny for 3 years. In that moment, the air seemed to be sucked out of your lungs. Your legs went weak, and if it weren't for the steadying arm of your ever-protective brother James, you might have collapsed into the cold snow. The pain wasn't like a knife. It was like a slow-acting poison, freezing everything inside you. 15 years. 15 years of breakfasts, evenings of nursing him through illnesses, of shared smiles and small secrets. It was all an elaborate play, and you never even knew you were just a supporting character in your own life. You stood there in the darkness, looking into the light. You saw the little girl, the product of this deception, clapping her hands in glee. And a strange thing happened. The tears didn't come. A scream didn't tear from your throat. Instead, the icy pain began to crystallize. It hardened, becoming something sharp and solid. It was rage, but not hot, out of control rage. This was a cold rage, clear as crystal. A terrifying calm washed over you. You realized a simple truth. Robert hadn't just betrayed you. He had erased you. In that world beyond the window, you didn't exist. He was a widower. Your marriage, your home, it was all a lie to cover for his real life. The gifts he'd stolen weren't just objects. He had stolen the love you had for your father, your mother, your sister, and twisted it into a tool for his deceit. A single hot tear traced a path down your cheek. You reached up and wiped it away decisively. It would be the last tear you ever shed for this man. The victim in you died right then and there. James looked at you worried. "Mary, let's go," he whispered. "No," you replied, and your own voice surprised you. It didn't tremble. It was steady, filled with a purpose you never knew you had. "There's something I have to do." You stepped out of the shadows, out of the role of the secret observer. You were no longer the person hiding, peering into your husband's life. You squared your shoulders, lifted your chin, and walked with grim determination toward the front door. Each crunch of snow under your feet was an affirmation. You weren't running. You were confronting. James hurried after you, trying to reason with you, but he could see an unshakable resolve in your eyes. You stood before the heavy oak door, adorned with a cheerful Christmas wreath. A bitter irony. You didn't hesitate. You rang the doorbell. The chime echoed, cutting through the warmth and laughter inside. The seconds you waited felt like an eternity. You heard footsteps. A lock clicked. The door opened, and Robert appeared. He wore the self-satisfied smile of a happy host, but that smile froze the instant he saw you. You watched with cold detachment as the blood drained from his face. His eyes widened in sheer horror, as if he were seeing a ghost from a past he thought was safely buried on the other side of town. He stammered, his mouth opening and closing, unable to form a coherent word. "Mary!" He finally choked out your name, his voice raw with shock. "What are you doing here?" You looked directly into his eyes, the eyes you once loved, and you felt nothing but a cold void. "I came to meet your other family. Robert," you said, your voice unnervingly calm. "I came to see where the gifts that disappear from our house every Christmas end up." The woman in the red dress, Judy, appeared behind him, her beautiful face lit with curiosity. "Robert, who is this?" she asked, her voice soft. You didn't wait for Robert to answer. He no longer had the right to speak for you. You looked directly at the other woman, not with hate, but with a stark, unadorned truth. I'm Mary, you said clearly. Robert's wife. The word wife hung in the cold air between you. You saw understanding slowly dawn in Judy's eyes, followed by a devastating wave of shock. Her hand flew unconsciously to her neck, to the string of pearls, the gift of lies. Wife, she repeated, as if it were a foreign word. That's impossible. He told me he was a widower. Just then, the little girl ran out, curious about the commotion. She looked up at you with big, round eyes, Robert's eyes. Daddy, who's this lady? Daddy. The word pierced you, but it didn't break you. Instead, it reinforced the wall of steel that had just been erected around your heart. This was it. This was the life he had stolen from you, the child you never had. Robert, panicking, tried to salvage the situation. She's a dear client, he lied pathetically. A bitter, dry laugh escaped you. A client, 15 years of marriage, and that's how you introduce me, Robert, as a client. Everything unraveled after that. Judy, realizing she was a victim, too, ripped the pearl necklace from her throat. The little girl started to cry. Judy's screams for Robert to get out filled the air. She looked at you, and for a fleeting moment, you saw not hatred in her eyes, but the shared, painful empathy of a deceived woman. I'm so sorry, she said to you. I truly didn't know. The door slammed shut, locking the truth and the pain inside, leaving Robert alone on the porch, cast out by both of his worlds. He turned to you, his face a mask of desperation. Mary, he began, don't you come near me, you said, taking a step back. James was at your side now, a solid presence. You looked at the face of the man who had once been your entire world. You no longer saw the handsome, charming husband. You saw only a weak, pathetic liar. It's over. You said each word a clean cut. You turned and started to walk away. You didn't look back. Behind you, you heard Robert call your name, desperately followed by the most selfish and ridiculous excuse. I love you both. The words didn't hurt you. They only solidified your resolve. You stopped turning one last time. You looked him dead in the eye and delivered your final verdict not with anger, but with an ice-cold finality. It's over, Robert. I never want to see you again. As far as I'm concerned, you died tonight. And then you kept walking, head held high, leaving behind that man, that house, and most importantly, the naive, trusting woman you used to be. You didn't cry. The pain was too deep for tears. The feeling wasn't triumph, nor was it relief. It was a profound emptiness. But in that emptiness, for the first time in 15 years, you felt free. A chapter of your life had been brutally closed, but you knew as you got into James's car and drove away, another was about to begin. And this time, you would be the one to write it. When Robert and the last of his boxes were gone, what remained wasn't relief, but a deafening silence. The house you had poured your heart into, the home that once echoed with Christmas party laughter, now felt too big, too empty. Every corner held a ghost. Every object a reminder of 15 stolen years. You walked through the living room and saw the armchair where he used to read the paper. You entered the kitchen and saw the tea set you'd picked out together. They were no longer warm memories. They were artifacts in a museum of a fraudulent life. The first few months after the divorce were the hardest. You faced not only your own loneliness, but also the outside world. Springfield wasn't a big city. News traveled. When you went to the market, you felt the stares. Some were curious. Some were pitying, which was perhaps the worst. You were no longer Mary Roberts' proud wife. You had become poor Mary, the woman whose husband cheated on her. Friends from the church community kept their distance, unsure of what to say. The party invitations stopped coming. You were an outcast in the very community where you had once been a cornerstone. You realized that if you stayed in this house, in this cocoon of silence and judgment, you would wither away. One morning you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes were hollow, her shoulders slumped. Where was the strong, decisive woman who had confronted Robert on that porch? You knew you had to do something. You couldn't let him win, couldn't let his betrayal define the rest of your life. You put on the nicest dress you had left, applied a little lipstick, a small act of rebellion, and drove downtown with no particular destination. You just needed to get out to breathe different air. And then you saw it. A small handwritten sign in the window of the Reader's Nook bookstore. Help wanted. You had always loved books. Books were faithful friends. They never lied or betrayed. You parked the car, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The smell of old paper and ink welcomed you like a familiar embrace. Mr. Henderson, the elderly owner with thick glasses, peered at you over the counter. With a courage you didn't know you possessed, you asked about the job. That was the first turning point. Working at the bookstore saved you. It gave you a reason to leave the house every day. It gave you a task to focus your mind on organizing shelves, dusting off stories waiting to be discovered. It placed you in a quiet environment where people came for knowledge and comfort, not for gossip. Slowly, you began to find yourself again between the pages. You talked with customers, recommending authors you loved. You felt a small, pure joy in helping someone find the perfect book. You realized you had knowledge, you had taste, you had value of your own, completely independent of being someone's wife. But the real change, the deepest rebirth came by accident. One afternoon, an elderly farmer named Eugene, a regular, who always bought the newspaper, asked you to read a letter for him. It was from his granddaughter, who lived far away. As you read her loving words aloud, you saw tears well up in Eugene's eyes. "I wish I could read it myself," he said softly, his voice full of regret. "I never got much schoolin', Miss Mary." Eugene's words planted a seed in your mind. You started to notice more. You saw other people in town struggling to read street signs to fill out a simple form. They were good, hard-working people, left behind by the world of letters. And you thought, I can do something about this. The idea came to you naturally. You had the time. You had a love for books and words, and most importantly, you had a deep empathy for the feeling of being excluded, of being denied a fundamental part of life. You spoke to Mr. Henderson, and he agreed to let you use the back storage room 2 evenings a week. You typed up a simple notice yourself. Free reading and writing classes for adults, every Tuesday and Thursday evening at the Reader's Nook. Your hands trembled as you pinned it to the community bulletin board, afraid no one would come, that it was a foolish idea. But they came. That first Tuesday, 6 people showed up. There was Eugene. There was a single mother who wanted to read stories to her son. There was a factory worker who needed to pass a written driver's test. They sat on old folding chairs, their faces a mixture of hope and embarrassment. And you standing before them with a small chalkboard and a few pieces of chalk felt a thrill greater than any grand Christmas party you had ever hosted. You started with the very basics, the alphabet. You taught them how silent letters formed sounds, how sounds formed words, and how words opened up entire worlds. It wasn't easy work. It required infinite patience. But you discovered something magical. When you saw the light dawn in Eugene's eyes, as he sounded out his granddaughter's name for the first time, you felt a joy, a profound satisfaction, unlike anything you had ever known. This joy wasn't like the satisfaction of roasting a perfect turkey or receiving a compliment from a party guest. This was the joy of empowerment, of helping another person connect with the world. You weren't just teaching them to read. You were giving them back their dignity, opening doors that had long been closed. Your class grew. The storage room became crowded. Word spread. You were no longer poor Mary. You were Miss Mary the teacher. The same people who had looked at you with pity now looked at you with respect. In teaching others, you learned so much yourself. You learned that a person's true worth isn't found in the house they live in, the husband they have, or the parties they throw. It's found in the kindness they give, in the positive change they make in the lives of others. You realized that Robert had taken 15 years of your life, but he couldn't take your intelligence, your compassion, or your resilience. His betrayal, however painful, had inadvertently freed you from a gilded cage, from a role you didn't even know you were playing. It had pushed you out of your comfort zone and forced you to find a new path for yourself. And as you stood before your class, looking at the hopeful faces of your students, you knew you had found it. The dream of your youth, the dream of going to college that you had set aside to get married, came roaring back to life. It was no longer a distant fantasy. It was the logical next step on the journey you were on. You were no longer a woman trying to piece together a broken life. You were a woman confidently building a brand new one, a life of meaning, purpose, and one that was entirely your own. Walking onto the university campus at age 37, you felt like you were from another planet. You were surrounded by bright, energetic young people whose futures stretched before them like an open book. You, on the other hand, felt like your book had been torn apart and had to be rewritten from scratch. A quiet fear gnawed at you, the fear of being judged, of not belonging. More importantly, you had built impenetrable walls around your heart. Robert had taught you the cruel lesson that love could be a weapon and trust a fatal weakness. You told yourself you were here for knowledge, for a new purpose, not for a relationship. You had slammed the door on love and locked it. You believed that independence and peace of mind were all you needed. And then you met Philip. He didn't storm into your life like a romantic whirlwind. He entered quietly as Professor Philip Grant, who taught the English literature class you enrolled in. He was nothing like Robert. He didn't have the polished, dapper look in expensive suits. Philip had slightly messy, salt and pepper hair glasses that were always sliding down his nose and a collection of well-worn tweed jackets. But when he spoke, the entire room fell silent. He talked about poetry and novels with a profound passion and a nuanced understanding that resonated with your book-loving soul. In his class, you weren't a broken-hearted divorcee. You were an eager student. Your life experience gave you a deeper insight into the pain, joy, and human complexities described in literature. You participated actively, and you noticed Philip's gaze. It wasn't the look of a man looking at a woman. It was the look of one intellectual recognizing another, a look of respect and genuine interest. Your relationship began with conversations after class. At first, they were strictly about the lectures, about the subtext in a Keats poem or the structure of a Dickens novel. He listened to your opinions intently, never interrupting, never condescending. He made you feel like your thoughts had value. This was new. With Robert, deep conversations were non-existent. He just needed you to be a beautiful wife and a gracious hostess. He never truly cared what was going on in your mind. Slowly, the conversations expanded. One rainy afternoon, you both took shelter under the library eaves. You told him about the literacy class you still ran. You told him about the joy of seeing Eugene read his granddaughter's letter for the first time. Philip listened, not with pity, but with sincere admiration. "That's extraordinary, Mary," he said. "You're not just teaching them to read. You're giving them the world." In that moment, a brick in the wall around your heart loosened. For the first time in years, you shared something you were proud of with a man, and you were met with recognition and understanding, not a hollow compliment. Philip started inviting you for coffee after study sessions at the library. Those coffee dates became the highlight of your week. You talked about everything: books, politics, his travels, and your dreams. You discovered that Philip was a kind and sincere man. He was an open book. He told you about his wife, who had passed away from a long illness years ago, about his loneliness, and about the joy he found in teaching. He hid nothing. His openness was the polar opposite of Robert's deceitful mystery. Every time you were with Philip, you couldn't help but compare. Robert gave you expensive gifts to cover his guilt. Philip gave you a rare book he knew you'd love, a gift of understanding. Robert wanted you to be an ornament in his perfect life. Philip encouraged you to pursue your master's degree. He wanted you to shine with your own brilliance. One evening, while working together in his office, you had a moment of vulnerability. An essay on betrayal in Shakespeare had reopened an old wound. You fell silent for a long moment, and Philip noticed. He didn't press. He just said gently, "You seem a world away." And so you told him. Not every dramatic detail of that horrific Christmas night, but you told him about a marriage that ended in deceit, about the pain that forced you to rebuild your life from nothing. You spoke of your loss of faith in people in love. Philip just listened silently. When you finished, he didn't offer empty platitudes. He reached across the desk, gently placed his hand over yours, and said, "Thank you for trusting me with that. Whoever caused you that pain was a fool. But look at what you've built from the ashes. You got back on your feet. You went to school. You've helped an entire community. Mary, you are the strongest woman I have ever known." Tears streamed down your face, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of release. For the first time, someone looked at your scars and saw not pity, but strength. He didn't try to fix you. He admired the person you had become because of the brokenness. The walls you had built came crashing down in that instant. You allowed yourself to trust again. You allowed yourself to feel. Love the second time around wasn't a youthful whirlwind. It was like the warm afternoon sun, gentle, peaceful, and steady. With Philip, you felt safe. You felt cherished. You felt completely, totally yourself. Months later, on a beautiful autumn day, as you were walking through campus, golden leaves crunching under your feet, Philip stopped. He turned to you, took your hands, and looked you straight in the eye. "Mary," he said, his voice warm and sincere, "my life is so much better with you in it. You are brilliant and strong, and you have the kindest heart of anyone I've ever met. I don't have grand promises, just a simple proposal. I want to continue this conversation with you every day for the rest of our lives. Will you marry me?" There was no diamond ring, no grand romantic gesture, just two people who had known loss and had found in each other a companionship, a peace. You smiled a true smile that came from the depths of your healed soul. Your yes wasn't the impulsive agreement of a young girl. It was the commitment of a grown woman who knew her own worth, who had seen the worst of love, and was now bravely choosing its truest, most beautiful version. You hadn't been looking for love, but it had found you. And this time, it was built on an unbreakable foundation: respect, partnership, and truth. Decades passed. Your life with Philip was a quiet symphony filled with a peace you once thought was forever lost to you. You grew old together, surrounded by towering stacks of books, in a cozy home where genuine laughter replaced the icy silence of the past. You completed your degree, earned your master's, and dedicated your life to education, helping hundreds of people find their voice through the written word. You became a beloved great-aunt to James's children and grandchildren, filling that empty space in your heart with a rich and complete family love. Robert to you was no longer a festering wound. He had become an old story, a faded chapter in a thick book you rarely opened. The rage and pain of that Christmas night had softened over time, like a fever that had long since broken. You no longer thought of him with hatred. You barely thought of him at all. Your life was too full with the present. Until one day, a letter arrived. It was not a typical letter. The envelope was thick from a law firm in a distant city. As you opened it, a strange feeling trickled down your spine. Inside was a brief letter from an attorney informing you that his client, Robert, had passed away after a long illness. And enclosed with it was a second sealed envelope with aged but still recognizable handwriting on the front. For Mary. Philip was by your side, as always. He saw the change in your expression and placed a gentle hand on your shoulder. "Is it him?" he asked. You nodded. You held the sealed letter, feeling the weight of decades of silence. You felt no fear or anger, just a distant curiosity, a final question that needed an answer. You sat in your favorite armchair by the window where the afternoon sun streamed in. Philip sat across from you, saying nothing, his presence a quiet source of strength. You slowly opened the letter. Robert's handwriting was shaky and weak, the script of a man at the end of his life. The letter was not long, and it contained no excuses. It was a confession. He wrote that he knew he didn't deserve forgiveness, and he wasn't writing to ask for it. He just wanted you to know the truth of his life after you left. Judy had left him shortly after that night, taking their daughter with her, and never looked back. His business collapsed when his fraudulent dealings came to light. He had lived the rest of his life in loneliness and regret, haunted by the ghosts of the two families he had destroyed. He wrote that over the years he had kept track of you. He knew you had gone back to school, become a respected teacher, and remarried. He wrote one sentence that stuck with you. "I spent my life building facades, and you, from the most painful truth, built an authentic life. I envy you, Mary, not for your success, but because you found a peace and happiness I will never know." The letter ended with a simple, unadorned apology for all the pain he had caused. When you finished reading and folded the letter, you looked out the window at the falling autumn leaves. There were no tears. There was no triumphant smile. The fire of hatred had been extinguished long ago. In its place, you felt something else, something deep and quiet. It was peace. In that moment, you no longer saw Robert as the monster who destroyed your life. You saw the image of a broken man, a man who had imprisoned himself in a jail of lies and died alone. His betrayal had been your liberation, while he had remained trapped forever in its consequences. You pitied him, a calm and detached pity. You looked at Philip, the partner who had walked with you through your best years, whose love was built on truth. You thought of your students of James's family, and then a marvelous, brilliant truth dawned on you as clear as the sunlight. You realized that horrific Christmas Eve in 1969 was not the end of your life. It was the day you were born for the second time, Without that cruel betrayal, you would have remained a wife in a gilded cage, happy in an illusion, never knowing your own potential. The pain forced you to act. The collapse forced you to rebuild. The loss forced you to find a new purpose. That deepest wound became the catalyst for your greatest growth. It led you to the bookstore, to the literacy class, to the university gates, and finally, it led you to Philip. You realized that the past shapes us, but it doesn't have to define us. And sometimes the very worst detours in life lead us to the most beautiful destinations. You stood up, walked over to an old desk, and placed the letter in a drawer. That's where it belonged in the past. You took Philip's hand, feeling its familiar warmth. You smiled at him, a smile that held the wisdom of a lifetime. And you felt grateful. Grateful for the strength you had found, for the love you were given, and in a strange and profound way, you were even grateful for the pain that had brought you here. Because without that darkest night, you would never have appreciated this brilliant light so much. If you found this story helpful, please like and subscribe to Porchlight Diaries so I can continue to share more. Please comment where you're watching from and what part resonated with you. You never know who might need that encouragement today. Thank you for listening with such kindness.